Just because we try to push stuff away doesn't mean that it's going to go away. And when you don't deal with those feelings, they're going to start acting out. Kind of like a 2-year-old who's been told to take a nap, but they don't really want to, and they're throwing a temper tantrum. That's what those emotions and feelings are going to do. They're going to make themselves known, whether you're ready for it or not. Now, trust me, because I spent years trying to tell myself that emotions that I was feeling, like grief and guilt and anger, weren't a big deal. But all the while, they were right there influencing how I showed up in my life.
Welcome to the You Are Not Your Trauma podcast, a show that reminds you that you are not alone, your experiences matter, and you are not defined by what you've been through. Each week, you will hear from the host and invited guests who have either personal or professional experience with trauma. They will share their stories and strategies for overcoming past wounds and beginning the journey toward healing and wholeness. Now, here's your host, a gifted speaker, author, coach, and entrepreneur, Harriet M. Harris.
Welcome to another episode of You Are Not Your Trauma, the podcast that brings hope, healing, and inspiration to those who have experienced life's most challenging moments. It is here in this space that we peel back the layers of trauma, not just to expose it, but to understand and overcome it. I'm your host, Harriet M. Harris, and I am so glad that you're here today. I hope that this show is an important part of your healing journey. Now, whether you've been with us from the very beginning or you're just tuning in for the first time, I want you to know that you're in a place where your journey matters and you are not alone. Now, for some, today's episode might feel like I'm speaking directly to you because we're talking about letting go and exposing what's hiding in plain sight. Now, you may be thinking, well, why do I think that this will hit close to home? And that's because a lot of us have things that we've buried or tried to ignore, thinking they're out of sight, out of mind. But let's be honest, they're not. They show up in our thoughts, in our actions, and the way we feel, sometimes in ways that we don't even recognize or notice. Now, let's be real. None of us are going to get excited about dealing with or processing thoughts and feelings that we want to ignore. Instead, we push them down, we avoid them, we try to convince ourselves that we're over it. But the truth is, those feelings don't go anywhere. They stick around. And at some point, they sneak up out of nowhere and they begin affecting our lives in all kinds of ways. Our mental health, our physical health, our relationships, and so much more. Then it happens. The very emotions that we try to ignore end up wreaking havoc on our lives, and we don't know what to do. Now, before we jump further into this topic, we're going to take a really quick commercial break, but stay with me because when we come back, I'm going to talk about why it's so important to bring those hidden emotions to the light. Stay with me. I'll be right back.
Want a chance to win exclusive You Are Not Your Trauma merch? Here's how. Leave a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform and share your thoughts with us. It helps us reach more listeners who may also be seeking healing and growth. Once you left your feedback, visit feedback.youarenotyourtrauma.com to let us know you've entered by entering your info and the word feedback in the message section. You could be a lucky winner. Now stay tuned for today's inspiring episode, and thank you for being a part of the You Are Not Your Trauma community.
Welcome back. Now, if you take nothing else from this episode, I want you to remember this. Just because we try to push stuff away doesn't mean it's gone. And when you don't deal with those feelings, they start acting out, kind of like a 2-year-old who really doesn't want to take a nap, but they've been putting down for one anyway, and they just act up. those feelings and emotions, they're going to make themselves known whether you want to deal with it or not. Now, if you take nothing else from this episode, I want you to remember this. Just because we try to push stuff away doesn't mean that it's going to go away. And when you don't deal with those feelings, they're going to start acting out. Kind of like a 2-year-old who's been told to take a nap, but they don't really want to, and they're throwing a temper tantrum. That's what those emotions and feelings are going to do. They're going to make themselves known, whether you're ready for it or not. Now, trust me, because I spent years trying to tell myself that emotions that I was feeling, like grief and guilt and anger, weren't a big deal. But all the while, they were right there influencing how I showed up in my life. Now, for me, it felt like carrying this invisible weight, something I couldn't see, but I could always feel it. I thought I had everything under control, but those feelings I'd buried eventually showed up as stress, anxiety, depression, and even tension in my body. Now, in my journey, I learned that healing isn't just about feeling better. I used to think I was healed because I felt better on the surface. I had decided I was going to deal with my stuff. And, at the end of the day, it was all surface level. The truth is, I hadn't actually processed anything. I just tucked it all away nicely in a neat little corner, just so that I didn't have to deal with it. But healing is more about exposing what has been hidden away in plain sight. Those emotions that I didn't want to confront, but needed to. Now, recognizing that those feelings and emotions need to be dealt with, that was just the first step toward real freedom for me. Now, let's talk about some of the key steps that have helped me and some of the folks that I've worked with start exposing and processing the feelings that they've been hiding. And I say for anything that you're dealing with, whether it's trauma, whether it's, hidden emotions, just communication issues, like whatever it is that you need to deal with, the first step is always going to be awareness, because you can't deal with anything that you haven't become aware of. You can't deal with anything that you aren't willing to accept and recognize as part of your reality. You've got to open up or be open to the idea that something's there, even if you can't quite put your finger on it. Now, looking back for me, I can see that I kept myself busy. I mean, busy, not just a mom. I was working, in church. I was working on the school board. I was a room mom, like all the things. I stayed busy, and like I said, maybe it was on purpose. Maybe it was without realizing it. But what I do know is that when I finally slowed down and allowed myself to be still and to really let things start to sink in, that's when things got uncomfortable. Because when I slowed down and I started listening to my body and giving my mind time to actually catch up, that's when I finally began to acknowledge that I wasn't okay. Sometimes we get so good at ignoring our feelings that we don't even realize that we're doing it. I don't know if it's just me, but maybe it's you too. But next, for me and my journey, I found that having safe spaces were really important. Having somewhere to go to talk, whether it was with my therapist, my coach, or a trusted friend. I had to admit that I couldn't carry it all alone, and I couldn't continue to keep it all inside, because what happens is when I kept it inside, it was about to explode. And that is often one of the things that the people that I work with, they talk about, is that they don't know what to do with the things that they're carrying on the inside, those emotions that they're carrying on the inside, because what they start to see is that they come out in different ways: anger, frustration, annoyance, being short with people, or irritable. That's the better word. Being irritable, it all comes out in a different way when you keep it all inside. So I decided I couldn't do that anymore. And once I started talking, The emotions that I thought were too big or too scary to confront didn't seem as overwhelming anymore because I was talking about them in a safe space. They had been hiding in plain sight for so long, but once I exposed them, once I faced them, they began to lose their power over me. Now, another step that I took that really helped me, and I advise this to anyone that I work with, is journaling, writing things down. That allowed me to notice patterns of thoughts and emotions that I had been avoiding. It also allowed me to get out some feelings that I really hadn't been courageous enough to say out loud. Sometimes it felt like the pen had a mind of its own. I'd write things that my mind had buried so deep, but my heart still knew that those things were there. So the act of actually putting pen to paper made it real, and it exposed those feelings that had been quietly affecting me for a very long time. Exposing those emotions, whether it be grief, loss, anger, sadness, or whatever it is for you, allows you to start healing. Facing those feelings help you to heal not only from what you've been avoiding, but also from all the time you spent keeping those emotions buried. Now, we're going to take another quick commercial break. Stick with me. I'll be right back.
Imagine having resources at your fingertips that support you through every step of your healing journey. That's exactly what you'll get with the You Are Not Your Trauma app. Access guided meditations to find your peace, read inspiring stories that resonate with your experiences, and join a community that truly understands. But that's not all. Dive into the Healing Chronicles and participate in community challenges. It's more than an app. It's a companion on your journey of self-discovery and healing. Download the You Are Not Your Trauma app today and join a community where your story matters and your healing journey is honored. Find us on the App Store and Google Play Store. Your journey to healing starts now.
All right, welcome back. Let's wrap up with this thought. Exposing what's hiding in plain sight won't be comfortable, but if you truly want to heal, you gotta do it. Plain and simple. Allow yourself to let those emotions come to the surface so that you can release them and finally move forward. Remember this, healing begins when we stop hiding from what we feel and start letting it rise to the surface. Now, I want to hear from you. Join the conversation. What's one emotion you've been hiding that you're ready to expose and process? I want you to share your story with us on social media using the hashtag YANT Exposing Emotions. And be sure to tag You Are Not Your Trauma podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Let's keep the conversation going and support each other in this journey towards healing. Now, to everyone listening, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of You Are Not Your Trauma podcast. Your presence is a vital part of this collective journey. If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to share it with someone who can benefit from the information that I shared. Also, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Check out the website, www.youarenotyourtrauma.com, to leave feedback, request to be a guest on the show, subscribe to the show, get information on show guests, or to get information about advertising on You Are Not Your Trauma podcast. Connect with You Are Not Your Trauma podcast on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok at You Are Not Your Trauma podcast. And if you have a story to share, please email me at contact@harrietmharris.com. Now, if you don't have the You Are Not Your Trauma app, I want you to go ahead and download it now. You can get it on Google Play or the Apple App Store. It is a fantastic tool to accompany you on your healing journey. Now, if you need additional resources to aid you in your journey of healing and self-discovery, I encourage you to download the You Are Not Your Trauma resource guide. It is available through the app or by visiting resourceguide.youarenotyourtrauma.com. And if you haven't heard, the You Are Not Your Trauma Healing Journal is now available for pre-order. You can pre-order it on Amazon or just go to healingjourney.youarenotyourtrauma.com. You can learn more about how to not only heal from trauma, but to start taking the steps to look at what life looks like after trauma. That is so important too. So until next time, remember, you are not your trauma. Bye-bye.